Let's be honest, we've all seen it on telly, haven't we? That incredible dream of finding a crumbling, forgotten building and turning it into a stunning home. And the appeal is massive, a totally unique property, a blank canvas, and let's face it, what often looks like a bargain price. But what's the real story behind that TV fantasy? Well, today, we're going to pull back the plasterboard and take a hard look at the real-world challenges. Think of this as the essential reality check for anyone dreaming of their own grand design. We're going to cover the practical, financial, and legal hurdles you absolutely have to clear. So, here's our plan. We'll start by figuring out what uninhabitable actually means in the eyes of the law. Then, we'll dig into the hidden groundwork, literally. We'll talk about the tricky business of getting it insured and financed, and then we'll wrap it all up with a final reality check to help you decide if this dream is really right for you. All right, first things first, let's get this definition sorted. You might walk past a house with no kitchen and a massive hole in the roof and think, perfect, it's uninhabitable. But, the taxman, HMRC, has a much, much stricter view on this. This is the key phrase right here. Unsuitable for use as a dwelling. What that really means is the building is so far gone, it's lost the basic character of a house. This isn't just about needing a few repairs, it's about whether it can even be called a dwelling anymore. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. A property that needs a new boiler, a new roof, a complete rewiring, or is even suffering from flood damage, that is not considered uninhabitable by HMRC. Nope, those are just seen as big jobs that can be fixed. For a place to be legally uninhabitable, it needs to have really deep structural defects that make it fundamentally unsafe or even dangerous to be in. Getting this distinction right is absolutely vital because it has huge consequences for your taxes and your financing. Okay, let's move on to the next major hurdle, and this one is literally what's right under your feet. A lot of derelict sites, especially old industrial ones, are on what's known as brownfield land. And trust me, that land can hide some very, very expensive secrets. So brownfield land is just a fancy term for land that's been used before. The big problem is that previous use, whether it was a workshop, a garage, or a small factory, could have left a nasty legacy of contamination in the soil. And guess what? As the new owner, that becomes your problem to sort out. Now, dealing with this isn't just guesswork. Professionals follow a really strict process. It starts with a desk study. Then they move on to actual ground investigations, digging things up. And then they create a full-blown remediation or cleanup strategy. It's a complex and absolutely essential bit of due diligence you have to do before you even dream of laying a single brick. And listen, the second you take ownership, you are legally on the hook. You have a duty of care to keep that site safe, and that includes keeping it safe from trespassers. That means proper fencing, warning signs, securing any hazards. The responsibility kicks in from day one. And this is where the dream can turn into a proper financial nightmare. Just look at these official cost estimates. To clean up a former garage site, you could be staring at a bill for over £1 million. £1 million! And that's before you've bought a single bag of cement. This isn't just a risk, it's a potential project killer that can completely dwarf what you paid for the property in the first place. And of course, there's the big one, asbestos. It's one of the most common and feared contaminants. If you find it in the ground or in the building itself, you can't just chuck it in a skip. Oh no, it needs specialist licensed contractors, and the costs for removal can be absolutely eye-watering. Okay, so you've navigated the tricky legal definitions and you're aware of the ground contamination risks. Now you need to get your project insured. And I'm going to tell you right now, that standard home insurance policy you're used to, it is completely and utterly useless for this job. And here's why. Most standard policies will become void if a property is empty for more than 30 days. They don't cover any of the new building work or your materials, and they often have these sneaky clauses that exclude any damage caused by the renovation itself or if you're making major structural changes. Basically, you are not covered at all. So let's just walk through a classic scenario, shall we? Your builder's on site, work's going well, then you get a call. Overnight, a fire breaks out and it's caused major damage to the property. It's your worst nightmare come true. So what happens next? Well, the cause of the fire isn't clear, so your insurer points to a clause saying they don't cover damage from building works. Then the contractor's insurer argues that their client wasn't negligent. And you, the owner, are stuck right in the middle, in total financial limbo while the two of them fight it out. And this is exactly why specialist renovation insurance is absolutely non-negotiable. It's designed for this precise situation. It pays out for the loss, no matter whose fault it was. It just cuts through all that stalemate and protects your project from complete financial ruin. Right. Now for the million-pound question, or maybe more accurately, the several hundred-thousand-pound question: how on earth do you pay for it all? You see, getting finance for a derelict property is a completely different ballgame. So, can you just waltz into your local high street bank and get a standard residential mortgage for a property that might not even have floors or a functioning roof? The short answer is almost certainly no. A standard mortgage lender is lending you money against a habitable property. If the building you want to buy isn't considered a livable dwelling, they just won't see it as proper security for their loan. It's too big a risk for them. So what's the alternative? Well, most people in this situation have to turn to something called a bridging loan. It's a short-term, specialist loan that's designed to bridge the gap. You use it to buy and renovate the property, and then once the work's all done and it's a lovely, habitable house again, you can get a normal mortgage to pay off that bridging loan. But, and this is a big but, they come with a serious health warning. As one user on Reddit pointed out in a discussion on this exact topic, these loans are expensive. We're talking high interest rates, and the real risk is if your project overruns or you can't get a mortgage at the end of it. You need a rock-solid exit plan, because if you can't pay it back on time, the costs can spiral out of control fast. Phew, we've covered the legal definitions, the risks lurking in the ground, the insurance minefield, and the financial maze. So after all that, let's bring it all together. Let's talk about where you might actually find these properties and ask the big question: is this dream really for you? You know, finding these places can be part of the adventure. Property auctions are a classic hunting ground. You can also have a chat with local estate agents and specifically ask for properties that need major renovation or fixer-uppers. And there are also specialist websites that focus on these kinds of opportunities. One example is repossessedhousesforsale.co.uk, and we'll pop a link for that one in the description for you. So, really, it all comes down to this. The potential reward is incredible. A unique home, built exactly the way you want it. But the risks are very, very real. We're talking about potentially crippling land cleanup costs, useless standard insurance, and expensive high-risk finance. So knowing what you know now, the final question is a simple one. Is the derelict dream really the right dream for you?